Welcome to Retro Scale Modelling. For my next build, I'm building this Airfix Douglas Phantom FG.1, scale 172. Now, this plane holds special memories for me, but I'll get into that in a moment. It's an old kit from Airfix, and so it's got a basic layout, so I'll just go through it now. So to start with, we have the sprues. There's a little bit flash, but not much, so that's okay. I've not really looked at these yet. There's weapon systems, tail fins and engine, main body, undercarriage, more weapons, the clear parts. Quite a lot of clear parts on here, so there'll be one or two options, and an extensive decal sheet. Now the instructions, they've reprinted these instructions in the new style that Airfix do them. So you've got the stage locators, so that you can't go wrong. So quite a lot. Actually, this might be the newer kit. Quite a lot on the instructions by the look of it. And then we have the paint sheet and decal location. So the decal location sheet first. It's massive. We'll just hold it up, be easier. So there's quite a lot of decals to go on this if you choose to put them on. And the paint sheet. Now, you have two options here. You have number 43 Squadron Royal Air Force Lookers, 1974. And that's the basic British RAF battle colours. And then you have this version, which is Lucas Air Force again, Air Base again, September 1989, and this one is black. Don't get confused with the sort of light blue on it. It is actually black. I think they printed it like that just so things can stand out. Now, I didn't realise that this kit had the lookers markings for it, which is quite good for me because I come from Dundee, and as a kid I used to see these fly over me because RAF lookers is 10 minutes drive from where I used to live. So I was quite lucky, got to see quite a lot of these. So I'm going to be doing it in this variant. So it's all black. So I'm looking forward to this. So I'll get on with the build. Starting with the cockpit, I'm painting this in Rebel Aquacolor 43 medium grey, and that's going to be the main colour here. And the same colour for the sidewalls of the fuselage. So just painting in the areas here. Now I'm just going around the sprue for the cockpit area and just painting in the grey that needs to be done before I take it off the spray. I'm using Rebel Aquacolor 82 Dark Earth. Now this colour is for the actual seats, so the seat paddings. I'm moving on to Rebel Aquacolor 302 Silk Black, and this colour is going to be used on the top of the seats as well as the grip on the stick and the injection pool rings. So I'm just laying that down in all those different parts before I take them off the sprue again. For the bandit around the ejection ring pool, I'm using Rebel Aquacolor 3110 Lufthansa Yellow. Now you need a small brush for this, or you might be inclined to use a cocktail stick just to do this. It's a very small part. The actual construction of the cockpit is fairly straightforward. The seats get placed into the frame of the chair, and they just fit in with a small little location point that shouldn't give you too much trouble. Before I move on to anything else though, there's a series of little decals to put on. These are for the instrument panels, for the heads up and for the sides where the pilot sits. Once they were dry, it's time to carry on with the assembly. So I'm just putting on the top part of the seats here, which contains the ejection ring pull, and it should just fit directly on top of the unit there. Next is to put in the middle heads up display. There is a slight assembly work to be done here beforehand, but that's just cementing two parts together. Shouldn't be any problems whatsoever. Then going on to putting the actual seat in, there's a little recess point at the back of the seat that fits in to the framework. Next to go in is a control stick. Now this is only meant to go in one way, but it can go in both ways. So just look at your instructions, make sure you've got the angle correctly for this before putting in the instrument panel, which I'm doing now. But you'll be able to tell as soon as you put the instrument panel in, because the control stick will bump up against the instrument panel if you've got it in the wrong position. It should be in between the chair and the instrument panel, not touching. So once you're happy with it, there's just a bottom plate or foot plate that goes on at the end of it, and then that's the cockpit build. So it's a very straightforward build for a cockpit. I'm using Rev Colour 07 gloss black for the air intakes for the sides here. Now you notice the other part's white. The instructions say paint it white, but it depends on what variant you're doing. You either paint it black or white. I should have painted it black. I misread the instructions. So you want to make sure that you've got the right colour before you go on. Next to go on is the housing for the rear wings. Now depending on how you're going to display this model, whether wheels up or down, will be depending on which part you put in. One's an angle, one's a straight recess, so make sure you pick the right one. Then it's time to assemble the housing for the engines. It's a straightforward assemble. Just line up the location points, so you shouldn't have any problem with it. It's time to place in the air intakes on the engine. It could be a little bit tricky here. Make sure that the black part is fitting on the outside and the round part is fitting on the inside. It is angled to do this, but you may be a little bit confused how it goes if you've never built a model like this before. There is a support structure that runs across the fuselage here that has to be removed beforehand. I removed it off camera without thinking. Next to go in is the cockpit, and that just sits in its location points. Again, you shouldn't have too much of a problem. There's a deep recess for it to fit into, so you can't go wrong on it. Closing up the fuselage, I done this in a couple of stages. So I close up the cockpit and cone area first, and that's because of the nature of this fuselage. There's big gaps in between it for the later stage of the build, so it's better to do the solid part first, then do the tail end, then work on the middle end. So the front's closed up, working on the tail end now, just closing it up. You may need a clamp just to hold it together. I'm going on to the rotating vents now, and I'm using Rev Aquacolor 99 aluminium to paint these. For the cowl and the housings, I'm using XF56 metallic grey by Tamiya, and that's getting painted on the inside and the outside. Back to the main plane now. It's time to put in the top section. It's just a long thin section that goes in. Again, you shouldn't have too much problem. You may have to hold it down a little bit or clamp it just to get it to set, but other than that you should be okay. Next to go in is the rotating fans, and these just fit in on the intake valves that you placed in earlier. Next is the rear exhaust. Now when you're putting them in, make sure you have the right angle. They can be a little bit tricky. You'll notice it when you put on the bottom half anyway, so you may want to leave a little room so that you can move them around, because they can go out of alignment. Onto the underside of the aircraft, there's a couple of things to make up, and also depending on how you're going to display it. So there's two options here for the wheels up or wheels down. I'm having my wheels up. If you're having them down, there's vents that you can have open and so forth, so just be careful which part you're going to be doing. You have to drill the holes for the weapon pylons, so I'm just doing this now. Again, check your configuration to see which one you're doing. It's also worth noting as well, some of these parts go on one side of the underbelly or the inside of it. So this is going on the outside, the part of the aircraft you'll see, but the other bracket I put in before this stage goes on the inside. It may be a bit confusing, so always check. Can't emphasize that enough. I'm just placing in a couple of flaps here, and these are open if you're having your wheels down. Now it's time to bond it. It should just fit squarely on. This will be where you find out whether you've got the exhaust in the proper position. So if you've left a little bit of movement, this is where it'll pay off, just to align them in. The rest should just click into place. I'm now placing in the cowlons for the air intakes, and these are difficult to put on. You're going to need a clamp as well to hold them in position. There was a little bit of gapping, so I'm just filling that in with a little bit of filler. Now it's time to put on the top part of the wing. Now they should just fit right onto the bottom part. They can be a little bit tricky to get the alignment. There is a couple of location points to help you guide it in, but you may need a couple of clamps just to hold it in place. Once the filler was dry, just a quick sand down to get it all level. Onto the tail now. There's two different options here, so depending on what variant you're doing, A or B, just make sure you're getting the right one. And it fits nicely in the top here. Slide in the front of it first before you push down the back, then it should just click into place. Next is the canopy. Like this kit, you have two options for it to be opened or closed. I'm having the closed version, so I'm painting this in Revel Aquacolor 07 black gloss. As you can see, I'm freehand painting this. This is quite a large canopy, so if you choose to freehand paint it, you shouldn't have too much of a problem. Just do long smooth strokes and you should be okay. And as I should say, don't be afraid to touch up as you go along, because you may have to. So I'm ready to put in the wing, the tail wing, and it goes in this little slot here. Now it was going on the underside, but when I was pushing this in, that popped out. I obviously didn't secure it properly, so I'm left with that. It's got to go in there. Now because there's a ridge, I can't get that back in, so what I've done is I've cut off the ridge and filed it down. The idea is to cement this part onto it, then place it in. So I dry fitted it was alright. I've had to shave off a little bit there, so just bonding it, making sure I get it into alignment. You don't want to put too much pressure on it. So now time to fit this, and all going well. Well, it took me a couple of goes to get to this stage, and I'm managing to get it in now. The crucial point here though is I got it in, and it's quite a tight fit, which is good, so I didn't have to worry about filling it. And once I checked the alignment, yeah, I was happy with that. Onto the wingtips now, and these fit in and they go slightly upwards. If you're having it with the wheels down, you will use a different part from this one. Next to go on are the wing flaps, and these should just butt up against the main wing. Bit difficult there with the angle to see on camera, but there you go. We'll just turn it around, and once your back ones were in, it was time to put in the front ones. Just one solid piece there. The undercarriage covers will have to be slightly modified. It does tell you to do this in the instructions, so you're just cutting off the bracket that would hold them in the upright position if you're having the landing gear up, that is. And once they've been modified, it's just a simple case of placing them in. Shouldn't have any trouble with that. The air brake covers and panels are going in now. Again, it's up to you whether you want to have these open or not. I have to say these little panels do fit in rather nicely. There's no need to sand them down to get them to fit. They go in very square and just sit right in as soon as you tap them in. Before I finish the landing gear covers, I just remembered to put on all the little parts that connect, so the air intakes and weapon systems and things like that. There's two little pieces that go in just below where the exhaust ports go. Make sure you put them in first before you put the exhaust on, because you'll find them difficult to fit otherwise. You'll also want to paint them beforehand as well, so I'm using Rebel Aquacolor 99 aluminium. And while I'm there, I may as well paint the rest of the tail part anyway with the same colour. Once the paint's dry, it's just a case of putting on the exhaust. They should just butt up against the main body, and it was finally back to the undercarriage covers and just placing them on. Now I wasn't going to put any weapons on, but I decided to put these four on, so they're getting painted in Rebel Aquacolor 52 blue gloss. My thinking was just break up the underneath of the aircraft a little bit. Before putting them on, I thought it was better to paint around the area where I'm going to be putting these little missiles. So I'm painting this in the main colour, which is Rebel Aquacolor 07 black gloss, and just painting around where the missiles will go. Before I carry on with the painting, I had to put in the front landing gear cover. Curiously, this one's a clear plastic part. Don't know why that is. The tip of the missiles is also in gloss black as well, so I'm just painting them in. While it's all dry, I'm just putting in the wire catcher. It just slots in between the two exhaust ports. Then it was time to put in the little blue missiles that I done, and there's four of them. They just slot in a little recess on the underside. On the wings and the tail section, it calls for a different colour. Now the instructions are asking for a gunmetal colour to go on these, but I've had a look at some photos and that, and it's just a different tone and metal. So I'm painting these panels in Rebel Aquacolor 90 silver, as I say, just to give it a different tone. Back to the canopy, and I'm just using a cocktail stick here to rub away a little bit of excess I had on the canopy where I went slightly over the line. It wasn't much, just a tiny little bit. And the idea is just take your cocktail stick and rub over the area that you want to be removed, and it should come away easily enough. Do this before you varnish. Next is the refueling mechanism. Now you can have this open or closed, it depends on which one you want. I'm having mine closed, so I'm just putting in the cover. But if you're having it open, it is another part that you would use instead of the cover. On the front of the cockpit there's a little bit of clear parts that have to go on, and it's I think it's the heads up display that goes on. It's two clear parts. One at the bottom part will get painted black, but you leave the top part clear, and that gets placed in between the instrument panel and the nose cone. Now you will see some gaps here as well, but they're meant to be here, and once the canopy goes on you don't see them. Once the clear parts are in place, I'm just painting around where the canopy is going to go and start detailing the wings. The tip of the back wings is in the main colour of Rebel Aquacolor 07 black gloss. It's just the edges. The panel lines do help you guide you into the paint of this, so you can mask it off if you wish or just freehand. Once the paint is dry on the nose cone and cockpit area, it's time to place in the canopy, and this canopy just fits straight on without any problems. I'm placing the model on a stand, so this is an Airfix stand I'm using. So I've got the anchor point for the stand. I'm just dipping it in a little bit of white paint, and then I'm going to rest up where I want the stand to go onto the plane, and this just marks up the area where I have to drill two little holes. So I'm just placing it on. Make sure you get it in the position you want, and you see the two little marks, and that's where I'm going to be drilling. So I'll just use my pin drive to do the actual holes. Start off with a small drill bit first of all, and then I take my knife and insert it and twist it around until the hole opens wide enough to receive the part. Now it's better to do this gradually. You don't want to do a big massive hole and find that you made it too big. So just a little couple of twists, check to see whether it fits, and then just carry on it until you get the diameter that's required to fit the pin. So like the underside of the wing, I'm using Rebel Aquacolor 90 Silver to do a little bit of panel work here, just for the contrast. And then I can move on to painting the model. So it's all 7 black gloss for the entire model, and just putting on the first coat. Make sure it's, if you're doing brush painting, just make sure it's nice even strokes all the way through the model in the same direction, and keep your brush moist as well while you're doing it. And leave a good time for your paint to dry, and once that's done, I'm putting on my first coat of varnish. So this is Pledge Clear Varnish, and it doesn't have to be a thick coat, just a thin coat will do, and put that in. I'm putting this all over the entire model. So I'll start putting on the decals now. There's not that many I'm putting on because the livery is black, but there's still a few. I'll fast forward this bit. So our decals are going on the normal way, softened in some warm water, applying our decal solution, in this case Decal Fix, and then sliding the decal on using bare tweezers and a cocktail stick and my brush just to get them in position. Straightforward. That's the last of the decals actually going on now. So if you were doing the B version of this, the traditional British Air Force camouflage, you would have a lot more decals to put on this kit, but because it is the black livery I'm doing, the other decals just would not stand out because most of them are black. Well, that's all the decals on, and they've dried now. So what's left to do is a little bit of weathering. There's no point of trying to weather the black with streak marks because you won't really see them. So I'm just going to be doing the engine, and I'm using Tamiya's Weathering Master Set D, and I'm using the burnt red, then the burnt blue components. So taking a bit of burnt red with a brush sharpener and just gently rubbing it on, and what that does, it gives it a burnt effect. I'm just rubbing that all over. Once I've done that, I'll take the blue, and if you notice I haven't cleaned my brush because I still want the burnt red on there. Take the blue and then apply the blue, and the blue goes on thinly, and you just blend that in with the burnt, and that creates a used metal burnt look like a jet engine would have. So I'm also doing it here, just running out of the jet where the flame would be. So you want that burnt effect look. So again, putting the burnt red on first, then the blue. Now if you end up with too much on your brush sharpener, which I've just did, blend it in as much as you can, and if you need to tone it back, just go back to your burnt red and put that back on a little bit more, and then that will tone down the blue. And then you'll see there, don't know if the camera can pick it up all that well, you end up with scotch marks. And as you're doing it, put a little bit of pressure on your sharpener, and you're coming along, lift up that pressure, so then, and flick it if you like. So you're ending up with a deeper colour here to a lighter colour there, and that gives off the illusion that the flame's been shooting out. So bringing this build to an end. Hope you enjoyed watching it. If you have time, why don't you check out my other videos on the channel? I'm sure there's something there for everyone. If you liked what you saw here, why don't you subscribe to my channel to get any more updates. I'm building all the time, so there's always something new going up. Throw me a like as well if you liked what you saw. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.